The morning sun rose over New Haven like any other day. Children ran through the streets of Cedar City, laughing as they hurried to school. Parents waved goodbye from doorways, coffee cups in their hands. Nobody knew this would be the last normal day their world would ever see. Admiral Jake Morrison sat in his office aboard the Orbital Defense Station, reviewing routine patrol reports. New Haven was one of humanity's most peaceful colonies. 2.3 million people called this world home. They had built something beautiful here over the past 30 years. Green parks, clean cities, and the best schools in the outer colonies. The communication panel beeped. Morrison pressed the button and saw the worried face of Governor Lisa Chun appear on the screen. "Jake, we have a problem," she said. "Long-range sensors are picking up something big heading our way," Morrison frowned. "How big?" 40 ships. "Maybe. More. They're not responding to our calls." Morrison felt his stomach drop. 40 ships was not a patrol. That was a fleet. He stood up quickly. "I'm on my way down. Start the emergency protocols." As Morrison's shuttle descended toward the planet, he could see the alien ships growing larger in the sky. They were Zephyrian vessels. Dark, angular ships that looked like giant knives cutting through space. The Zephyrian Empire controlled over 400 star systems. They were strong, proud, and had little patience for smaller species. Governor Chun met Morrison at the landing pad. She was a calm woman who had served in the military before becoming a politician. But today, her hands were shaking. "They sent us a message," she said as they walked quickly toward the government building. "They want us to surrender all human territory beyond Earth. They said we have 1 hour to decide." 1 hour? Morrison shook his head. "That's not enough time to even contact Earth. I think that's the point." They reached the crisis center where Colonel Ryan Walsh was coordinating the planet's defenses. Walsh was young for a colonel, but he had trained hard for situations like this. His face was grim as he looked at the tactical displays. "Sir," Walsh said to Morrison, "they're positioning their ships directly over our cities, not military bases. Cities." Morrison felt cold. "Are you sure?" "Yes, sir. They're targeting the schools specifically. Every major population center has ships." "Over the education districts?" Governor Chun stepped forward. "That doesn't make sense. If they want to control us, why would they target civilians?" Before anyone could answer, the communication system crackled to life. A harsh alien voice filled the room, speaking in broken human language. "Small humans," the voice said. "You will learn what happens to species that do not know their place. Your future ends today." The transmission cut off. For a moment, nobody spoke. Then the first explosions began. Morrison watched in horror as beams of energy lanced down from the sky. But they were not hitting military targets. They were hitting schools, playgrounds. The children's hospital on the east side of Cedar City vanished in a ball of fire. "They're targeting the kids," Walsh whispered. "They're specifically targeting children." The attack was systematic, precise. The Zephyrians had studied the colony maps carefully. Every school, every daycare center, every place where human children gathered was marked for destruction. The aliens worked their way through the target list with cold efficiency. Morrison tried to coordinate a response, but the colony's few defense ships were outnumbered 20 to 1. They managed to destroy 2 Zephyrian vessels before being overwhelmed. The enemy barely seemed to notice the resistance. Governor Chun stood at the window, tears streaming down her face as she watched her world burn. "Why?" she asked. "Why are they doing this?" A new transmission came through. This time it showed the face of a Zephyrian commander. The alien had gray skin and cold yellow eyes. It spoke clearly as if it wanted to be understood. "We have done this to 12 species before you," the commander said. "It is called future-proofing. A species with no young has no future. You will serve us or you will fade away." "There are no other choices." The attack continued for 6 hours. The Zephyrians were thorough. They broadcast their actions on all frequencies, making sure other species could see what happened to those who defied the Empire. They wanted the galaxy to witness the price of resistance. When it was over, 800,000 human children were dead. Morrison found himself in the evacuation center, helping load survivors onto transport ships. His uniform was torn and covered in dust. Many of the survivors were parents who had lost everything. They stared ahead with empty eyes. A woman approached him. She was holding the hand of a small boy who could not have been more than 5 years old. "Admiral," she said quietly, "my daughter was at Sunshine Elementary when they hit it?" She was 7 years old. Her name was Emma. She wanted to be a doctor when she grew up. Morrison could not find words. What do you say to someone whose child has been murdered for no reason except to send a message? Governor Chun appeared beside him. Her face was hard now. The tears were gone, replaced by something Morrison had never seen in her before. Pure rage. "They recorded everything," she said. "Every moment of the attack. They want us to remember. They want us to be afraid. Governor ... No, Jake, they made a mistake. They think they've broken us. They think they've taught us our place." She looked up at the dark shapes of the Zephyrian ships as they prepared to leave. "But they don't understand humans very well, do they?" Morrison followed her gaze. The alien ships were departing now that their work was done. They had delivered their message. "Submit or watch your children die. What do we do now?" Morrison asked. Governor Chun turned to look at the evacuation ships carrying the survivors. Mothers holding orphaned children. Fathers who would never see their daughters again. Grandparents whose family lines had been cut short by alien cruelty. "Now," she said quietly, "now we show them what happens when you murder human children." They wanted to send a message. Well, message received. And we're going to send one back. As the last transport ship lifted off from New Haven's burning surface, Morrison realized something had changed in humanity that day. The Zephyrians thought they had eliminated the human future. Instead, they had awakened something that had been sleeping. The galaxy was about to learn what humans were really capable of when someone threatened their young. The news reached Earth 3 days later. President Amy Rodriguez was having breakfast when her aide burst into the dining room without knocking. The young man's face was pale and his hands were shaking. "Madam President," he said, "you need to see this immediately." Rodriguez followed him to the Situation Room, where a dozen screens showed the horrific footage from New Haven. She watched in silence as Zephyrian energy beams carved through schools and playgrounds. She saw alien soldiers hunting down children who tried to hide in basements and storage rooms. She heard the Zephyrian commander's cold voice explaining their future-proofing strategy. When the footage ended, the room was completely silent. "How many?" Rodriguez asked quietly. 800,000 children, Madam President. The Zephyrians made sure to count them. They broadcast the number on all galactic frequencies. Rodriguez closed her eyes. 800,000. She had 3 grandchildren of her own. She tried to imagine what the parents on New Haven were feeling, but her mind could not process that level of loss. "Get me the High Council," she said. "Emergency session, now." Within 6 hours, the leaders of humanity's 8 colonies were gathered in the council chamber. Some appeared in person, others through holographic projection. All of them had the same expression of shock and rage. Fleet Admiral Chris Parker stood at the center of the room. He was a tall man with gray hair who had served in the military for 40 years. He had seen war before, but never anything like this. "The attack was completely planned," Parker said as he activated the main display. "Intelligence shows the Zephyrians had been studying our colonies for months. They knew exactly where our children would be at any given time." The display showed detailed maps of New Haven with Zephyrian targeting data overlaid on top. Every school was marked in red. Every playground, every youth center. "They didn't just want to kill our people," Parker continued. "They wanted to kill our future. This was genocide with a specific purpose." A woman in the back of the room raised her hand. Dr. Nicole Stevens was the head of xenological research. She studied alien species and their behaviors. Her voice was steady, but her eyes showed the same rage everyone felt. "Admiral Parker is correct," Dr. Stevens said. "I've been reviewing our files on Zephyrian expansion patterns. They have done This exact same thing to 12 other species over the past century. The room erupted in angry voices, but Rodriguez held up her hand for silence. Explain, the president said. Dr. Stevens activated her own display. It showed star maps with different colored zones. The Zephyrians have a standard method for controlling new territories. First, they demand surrender. If the target species refuses, they eliminate all children under the age of 15. They call it future-proofing because a species cannot rebuild if it has no next generation. What happened to those 12 species? Asked General Alex Morgan, the commander of Terran Special Operations. They all surrendered within 1 year, Dr. Stevens replied. Most are now extinct. The few survivors work as slaves in Zephyrian mining operations. General Morgan stood up. He was a quiet man who rarely spoke in meetings, but when he did, people listened. Madam President, I have a proposal. Go ahead, General. Morgan looked around the room at the faces of humanity's leaders. We show them what happens when someone murders our children. But first, we give them a chance to run. The room fell silent. Again, Rodriguez studied Morgan's face. She had known him for 10 years. He was not a man who made threats lightly. What exactly are you suggesting, General? We send them a message. Clear and simple. They have 6 months to evacuate their core worlds and surrender their leadership for trial. If they refuse, we show them what human military doctrine really looks like. Admiral Parker frowned. General, they control 400 star systems. We control 8? The mathematics are not in our favor. Morgan smiled, but it was not a pleasant smile. Admiral, with respect, you're thinking about this the wrong way. We're not trying to conquer them. We're trying to eliminate them. The room was quiet for a long moment. Finally, Rodriguez spoke. Before we discuss military action, we send the message. Captain Ben Hayes, are you available? A middle-aged man near the front of the room nodded. Captain Hayes was an expert in first contact protocols and galactic communications. He had been working with alien species since humanity first reached the stars. I can have a message broadcast on all galactic frequencies within 12 hours, Hayes said. But Madam President, nobody will take us seriously. The entire galaxy thinks humans are weak and peaceful. Good, Rodriguez said. Let them think. That it will make what comes next easier. She stood up and walked to the window overlooking the capital city. Below, children were playing in the parks. Families were walking together on safe streets. They had no idea their world had just changed. Forever, I'll deliver the message myself, Rodriguez said. Keep it simple. The Zephyrian Empire has 6 months to evacuate their core worlds and surrender their leadership for trial. This is humanity's only warning. Flee now. Madam President, Admiral Parker said carefully, what if they don't listen? Rodriguez turned back to the room. Her face was hard and cold. Then General Morgan gets to show them his proposal. The message was broadcast exactly 12 hours later. President Rodriguez stood in front of a simple blue background, wearing a plain black suit. She spoke for less than 2 minutes. Her voice was calm and clear. Citizens of the galaxy, she began, 3 days ago, the Zephyrian Empire murdered 800,000 human children. This was done deliberately as part of their standard policy of terror. We know they have done this to 12 other species before us. She paused and looked directly into the camera. The Zephyrian Empire has 6 months to evacuate their core worlds and surrender their leadership for trial. Any delays will be considered hostile action. This is humanity's only warning. Flee now. The message ended there. No threats. No explanations. Just a simple statement of fact. The galactic response was immediate. Alien news networks called it the desperate bluffing of a grieving species. Zephyrian officials laughed openly. During interviews, military analysts pointed out that humans controlled only 8 star systems compared to the Empire's 400 on the Zephyrian homeworld. Emperor Vask watched the human message and felt amused. These small creatures thought they could threaten him? He had crushed species far stronger than humanity. Ignore them, he told his generals. If they become troublesome, we can always eliminate more of their worlds. But deep in the classified sections of human military installations, things were beginning to move. General Morgan's proposal was no longer just a proposal. Projects that had been hidden for decades were suddenly activated. Ships that looked like cargo vessels began changing into something else entirely. The galaxy had 6 months to learn what humans were really capable of. Most species would spend that time laughing at humanity's impossible threat. They would not be laughing for long. 6 months passed. The Zephyrian Empire did not evacuate their core worlds. They did not surrender their leadership. Instead, Emperor Vask sent a message to Earth that contained only laughter and images of dead human children from New Haven. That was their final mistake. Commander Tony Mitchell received his orders at exactly midnight, Earth Standard Time. He was aboard the U.S. Retribution, a ship that most people thought was a simple cargo vessel. Mitchell had been waiting for this day for his entire military career. "All units, this is command," came the voice through his headset. "Operation Children's Vengeance is now active. You are cleared for a full deployment." Mitchell smiled grimly and turned to his crew. "Gentlemen, it's time to show the galaxy what we really are." The cargo ship began to change. Panels slid away to reveal weapons that should not have existed. Engines that had been hidden for 30 years roared to life. The hull itself shifted and reconfigured until it looked nothing like the peaceful vessel it had pretended to be. All across human space, the same transformation was happening. Cargo ships became battleships. Science vessels revealed weapons arrays. Even the smallest human transport showed fangs that no alien species had ever imagined. The first target was the Zephyrian military base at Kepler Station. It was supposed to be impossible to attack. The station was surrounded by defense platforms and early warning systems. No enemy had ever gotten within 1,000 kilometers without being detected. Mitchell's ship appeared directly above the station without triggering a single alarm. The Zephyrian commander barely had time to ask, "How did they get here?" before his station was reduced to scrap metal. Mitchell's ship vanished again, leaving no trace it had ever been there. Across the galaxy, similar attacks were happening simultaneously. Zephyrian military bases simply disappeared. Supply convoys vanished between star systems. Entire fleets went dark without sending distress signals. Colonel Megan Foster was leading Operation Silent Night from a ship that officially did not exist. Her team specialized in infiltration and sabotage. They had been training for this mission for 20 years. "Remember?" Foster told her troops as they prepared to beam down to the Zephyrian world of Terminus Prime. "We're not here to kill civilians. We're here to eliminate their ability to make war." The team materialized inside the planet's main military complex without triggering any security systems. They moved like ghosts through the corridors, placing small devices on key systems. Within 6 hours, every military installation on the planet was offline. The Zephyrians woke up to find their weapons factories destroyed, their command centers dark, and their defensive networks completely disabled. The strange part was that no one had seen them coming or going. Major Don Roberts commanded what the military files called the Ghost Fleet, 12 ships that could move through space without being detected by any known sensor technology. Roberts had been testing this capability in secret for 15 years. His fleet struck at the heart of Zephyrian territory. They appeared in the middle of heavily defended systems, destroyed key targets, and vanished before the enemy could respond. The Zephyrians started calling them phantom ships because their sensors showed empty space even when the human vessels were firing on them. "How are they doing this?" demanded General Crix, the Zephyrian military commander, as he watched another of his fleets disappear from the tactical display. "We don't know, sir," his aide replied nervously. "Our best scientists are working on it, but human technology shouldn't be this advanced." "Then maybe we don't understand human technology as well as we thought." The truth was even more shocking than General Crix imagined. On a small research station near Earth, Dr. Kate Williams was finally able to reveal the project she had been working on for most of her adult life. Dr. Williams looked like a gentle scientist who studied plants and soil samples. Most people thought She was just another agricultural researcher helping colonies grow food. They had no idea she was one of the most important military planners in human history. 30 years ago, Dr. Williams explained to a group of reporters, humanity made a decision. We realized that we would eventually meet hostile alien species, so we prepared. She led them through a facility that was supposed to be a farming research center. But behind the false walls were factories producing military equipment. Under the greenhouse floors were testing facilities for advanced weapons. The innocent-looking cargo ships parked outside were actually mobile weapons platforms. Every human colony ship was equipped with military-grade fabrication systems, Dr. Williams continued. We told everyone they were for terraforming and agriculture. That was only partly true. She showed them a standard colony terraforming unit. With a few simple modifications, it could produce advanced fighters and weapon systems. The peaceful farming equipment could be reconfigured into orbital defense platforms within hours. We've been building a military infrastructure for 3 decades, Dr. Williams said. The galaxy thought we were farmers and scientists. We let them think that. The revelation sent shockwaves through known space. Humanity had not just hidden their military capabilities. They had built an entire secret war machine while pretending to be peaceful colonists. Within 3 months of the deadline, the Zephyrian Empire had lost 127 star systems. Their fleets were being destroyed faster than they could count them. Their military commanders were being captured or eliminated with surgical precision. The worst part was that they could not fight back effectively. They could not see their enemies coming. They could not track human ships. They could not predict where the next attack would happen. Emperor Vask stood in his war room, staring at a map that showed red markers spreading across his empire like a plague. Each red marker represented a system that was no longer under Zephyrian control. How many ships have we lost? He asked his remaining generals. Over 2,000, Your Majesty. Maybe more. We're having trouble keeping track. And how many human ships have we destroyed? The general looked uncomfortable. 17 confirmed kills, sir. Vask turned to stare at him. 17? We've lost 2,000 ships and only killed 17 of theirs? The humans seem to have technology we don't understand, sir. They can attack us without us being able to attack them back. Vask felt cold fear creeping into his heart. This was not how wars were supposed to work. The strong conquered the weak. The large defeated the small. But somehow, these humans with their 8 star systems were dismantling his 400-system empire. Contact the other member species, Vask ordered. Tell them we need reinforcements. But when his diplomats reached out to the Empire's allies, they found that many species were having second thoughts. The humans had broadcast footage of their military operations, showing how they protected civilian populations even while destroying military targets. They had also broadcast the original footage from New Haven, reminding everyone what the Zephyrians had done to human children. The contrast was impossible to ignore. The Zephyrians killed children deliberately. The humans went out of their way to protect them even during war. Your Majesty, his diplomat reported, the Altarian Confederation has withdrawn from our alliance. They say they cannot support a government that targets children. The Corvan Republic has also left, sir. They're requesting human protection for their colonies. Vask's empire was not just losing territory. It was losing legitimacy. Species that had been allied with the Zephyrians for centuries were abandoning them as word spread about what had really happened on New Haven. The humans had done something no military strategist had ever considered. They had turned a war of conquest into a war of liberation. They were not just defeating the Zephyrian Empire. They were freeing the galaxy from it, and they were just getting started. Admiral Lavra Thompson stood on the bridge of the UES Vengeance, watching Zephyria Prime grow larger on the main screen. The Zephyrian homeworld was a massive planet with gleaming cities and orbital defense platforms. It was home to over 3 billion aliens, including the leadership that had ordered the massacre of human children. Thompson was a veteran officer who had served in the military for 25 years. She had planned this operation carefully. Today, the galaxy would see what justice looked like when humans delivered it. Admiral, her communications officer reported, were receiving surrender offers from 12 Zephyrian colonies. They want to negotiate. Tell them to contact diplomatic channels, Thompson replied. We're not here to negotiate. We're here for the leadership that ordered the murders. The human fleet took positions around Zephyria Prime, to the aliens watching from the surface. It must have looked like the end of their world. Human ships filled the sky, their weapons trained on the planet below. Emperor Vask stood in his palace war room, surrounded by his remaining generals. Most of his military commanders were either dead or captured. His empire was collapsing faster than he could count the losses. They could destroy us from orbit, General Crick said nervously. Why aren't they attacking? Vask stared at the tactical display showing human ships in perfect attack formation. Any other species would have begun orbital bombardment immediately, but the humans were just waiting. I don't know, Vask admitted. Maybe they want us to surrender first. A new voice came through the communication system. It was clear and calm, speaking perfect Zephyrian language. This is Admiral Thompson of the Terran Defense Force. We are here for the individuals responsible for the massacre on New Haven. Surrender them for trial. And your civilian population will not be harmed? Vask felt confused. These humans could eliminate his entire world with the push of a button. Why were they offering terms? What guarantee do we have? Vask asked through the communicator. You have our word, Thompson replied. Humans do not make war on children. On the surface of Zephyria Prime, General Sam Rodriguez was leading the first wave of human ground forces. His troops moved through the capital city with precision that amazed both enemies and civilians. They had detailed maps showing every military installation, every government building, every escape route. But most importantly, they had orders that no Zephyrian commander could understand. Remember, Rodriguez told his squad leaders, civilians are not targets. Military personnel who surrender are to be treated according to galactic law. Anyone who harms a Zephyrian child will answer to me personally. The human soldiers moved through the city like a force of nature. They captured military bases without damaging surrounding neighborhoods. They eliminated resistance fighters while protecting the innocent bystanders caught in the crossfire. Captain Beth Martinez was leading a special operations team tasked with capturing the Zephyrian High Command. Her team had trained for urban warfare in civilian areas. They knew exactly how to fight in a city without harming non-combatants. When Zephyrian military commanders tried to use civilian shields, Martinez showed them something they had never seen before. Her team eliminated the military targets with such precision that civilians standing next to them were not even scratched. How are they doing that? Whispered a Zephyrian civilian who watched human soldiers capture enemy troops, while carefully avoiding any harm to nearby families. I don't know, replied her neighbor. But they're not like what the government told us. They're protecting us. Word spread quickly through the civilian population. The humans were not killing indiscriminately. They were not targeting cities or infrastructure. They were only going after military and government targets, and they were being incredibly careful to avoid civilian casualties. The contrast with what the Zephyrians had done on New Haven was impossible to ignore. Commander Jake Sullivan was running psychological operations from a mobile command center. His job was to broadcast messages to the Zephyrian population and military forces. But instead of propaganda, he was broadcasting truth. Citizens of Zephyria Prime, Sullivan's voice came through every communication channel on the planet. We want you to see something. The broadcast showed footage from New Haven, Zephyrian forces celebrating as they hunted down human children. Alien soldiers laughing as schools burned. The systematic targeting of innocents. Then it showed current footage from Zephyria Prime, human soldiers giving medical aid to wounded Zephyrian civilians. Human medics treating alien children who had been injured in the fighting. Human troops sharing their food rations with Zephyrian families. This is the difference. Sullivan's voice continued. Your government kills children. We protect them. Your military targets the innocent. We shield them. The psychological impact was devastating. Zephyrian civilians began to understand that everything their government had told them about humans was a lie. These were not the savage creatures described in imperial propaganda. These were people who risked their own lives to protect alien children during a war. Even more importantly, the broadcast was being watched throughout the galaxy. Other species that had been allied with the Zephyrian Empire saw the footage and began to question their loyalties. Ambassador Chloe Anderson was coordinating with the media networks across known space. Her job was to make sure every species in the galaxy could see what was happening on Zephyria Prime. The galaxy needs to understand what this war is really about, Anderson explained to her team. It's not about conquest or territory. It's about whether species that target children should be allowed to exist. The footage she broadcast showed human forces going to extraordinary lengths to protect Zephyrian civilians. When alien children were trapped in a building that caught fire during the fighting, human soldiers risked their lives to rescue them. When Zephyrian families ran out of food, human supply convoys made sure they were fed. The alien children were given the same care and protection as human children would have received. The effect on the Zephyrian Empire's allies was immediate and devastating. Species that had been part of the Empire for centuries began withdrawing their support. We cannot be allied with a government that deliberately kills children, announced the Altarian Confederation's leader during a galaxy-wide broadcast. We formally request human protection for our colonies. The Corvin Republic stands with humanity, declared another alien leader. Any species that targets children is not worthy of our alliance. One by one, the member species of the Zephyrian Empire abandoned it. They had seen the footage from New Haven. They had seen how humans conducted war. The choice was clear. Emperor Vask watched his empire dissolve in real time. His communication board showed messages from dozens of species, formally withdrawing from imperial alliances. His military commanders were surrendering faster than he could replace them. Your Majesty, General Crick said quietly, perhaps we should consider surrender terms. Vask looked around his war room at the few loyal officers who remained. His empire of 400 star systems had crumbled in less than 4 months. Not because humanity had superior numbers, but because they had superior principles. Contact the human admiral, Vask said finally. Tell her we wish to discuss terms. But before he could finish the sentence, human soldiers appeared in his war room. Captain Martinez and her team had infiltrated the palace without triggering a single alarm. Emperor Vask, Martinez said calmly, you are under arrest for crimes against sapient species. You will be given a fair trial according to galactic law. As the human soldiers led him away, Vask realized something that would haunt him for the rest of his life. The humans could have killed him at any time during the past 4 months. They could have destroyed his world, slaughtered his people, and erased his species from existence. Instead, they had chosen justice over revenge. They had chosen protection over destruction. They had shown the galaxy what true strength looked like. The Zephyrian Empire was finished, but not because humanity had conquered it. It was finished because no one wanted to be associated with it anymore. The Zephyrian Empire officially ceased to exist on a Tuesday morning, exactly 4 months and 6 days after humanity's deadline expired. Admiral Mike Torres stood in what used to be the Imperial Command Center, watching as the last Zephyrian military units formally surrendered their weapons. It was not a dramatic ending. There were no final battles or desperate last stands. The Empire simply collapsed when its member species realized they no longer wanted to be part of it. Admiral, his aide reported, that's the last of them. 400 star systems are now without central government. Torres nodded as he looked at the tactical display. Red markers that had once shown Zephyrian territory were now blinking amber, indicating systems in transition. Most of them were requesting human assistance to maintain order during the changeover. Sir, the aide continued, we're receiving over 200 requests for protection agreements. Species want us to guarantee their safety while they establish New governments. Torres was not surprised. Word had spread quickly about how humans conducted warfare. Protect the innocent, eliminate the guilty, and show mercy to those who surrendered. It was a reputation that opened doors throughout the galaxy. On Earth, President Rodriguez was preparing for the most important speech of her career. She stood in the same room where she had delivered humanity's warning 6 months ago. But today, the message would be very different. "Madam President," her communication advisor said, "the galactic networks are ready. Every inhabited world will receive this broadcast." Rodriguez looked at her notes one final time, then set them aside. This speech needed to come from the heart, not from prepared text. "Citizens of the galaxy," she began, looking directly into the camera. 6 months ago, the Zephyrian Empire murdered 800,000 human children. Today, that empire no longer exists. She paused to let the words sink in across hundreds of worlds. But we did not destroy it through conquest or revenge. We destroyed it by showing the galaxy what it really was. A government that deliberately targets children has no right to exist. The camera showed Rodriguez walking to a window that overlooked Earth's capital. Children were playing in the parks below, safe and protected. Humanity asks for nothing more than peaceful coexistence. But understand this clearly. We will never again allow the deliberate targeting of children, regardless of species. We have shown you our restraint, but do not mistake it for weakness. She turned back to face the camera directly. Any species that wishes to live in peace will find humanity to be their strongest ally. Any species that chooses to threaten the innocent will find us to be their most dangerous enemy. The choice is yours. The broadcast ended there, but its impact would reshape galactic politics for generations. Fleet. Admiral Ryan Carter was working on something that had never been attempted before. The Terran Protection Protocols would establish a new framework for galactic security based on the protection of civilians, especially children. "The concept is simple," Carter explained to a gathering of alien diplomats. "Any species can request human protection by agreeing to basic humanitarian principles. In exchange, we guarantee that no one will be allowed to target your civilian populations." A Corvan representative raised his hand. "Admiral Carter, what if a species under human protection violates these principles?" "Then they lose our protection," Carter replied simply. "We're not interested in controlling other species. We're interested in protecting the innocent." The Altarian ambassador spoke next. "And what does humanity gain from this arrangement?" Carter smiled. "Peace, safety for our own children, and the knowledge that no other species will suffer what happened on New Haven." Within 6 months, over 100 species had signed protection agreements with humanity. The galaxy was restructuring itself around the principle that children should never be targets of war. But perhaps the most important work was being done by Dr. Lisa Grant, who had been chosen to head the newly formed Galactic Children's Protection Agency. Her job was to work with former Zephyrian officials who had opposed the massacre. Not every Zephyrian supported what their government did, Dr. Grant explained to her team. Many of them tried to stop the attack on New Haven but were overruled by the military leadership. She was working with former Zephyrian Administrator Kelm Vorth, who had resigned in protest when the attack orders were given. Vorth had spent his career trying to reform imperial policies from within. "Dr. Grant," Vorth said during one of their meetings, "I want you to know that many of us were horrified by what happened to your children. We tried to prevent it, but we failed." "I understand," Grant replied. "That's why we're working together. Now, to make sure it never happens again to any species." They were developing rehabilitation programs for former imperial worlds, helping them transition to governments that prioritized civilian protection. The work was slow, but necessary. 1 year after the Empire's collapse, Governor Lisa Chun stood before a memorial on New Haven. The planet had been rebuilt, but the memorial would stand forever as a reminder of what had been lost. Representatives from 200 worlds had come to pay their respects. Humans, Altarians, Corvans, even former Zephyrians who had opposed their government's actions. They stood together in silence as Chun spoke. 800,000 children died here, Chun said, her voice carrying across the memorial grounds. They died because adults failed to protect them. They died because power was valued more than innocence. She gestured to the crowd of diverse species standing before her, but their sacrifice was not meaningless. It awakened the galaxy's conscience. It showed us all what happens when we allow evil to go unchallenged. The memorial itself was simple. 800,000 small lights, one for each child who had died. They formed a spiral pattern that could be seen from orbit, a gentle reminder visible to anyone approaching the planet. We gather here not just to mourn, Chun continued, but to promise. We promise that this will never happen again. We promise that the strong will protect the weak. We promise that children everywhere will be safe. After the ceremony, Chen walked through the memorial gardens with Admiral Morrison, who had been promoted to head of colonial defense. They stopped at a small plaque that read, "Emma Martinez, age 7, wanted to be a doctor. Do you think we did the right thing?" Morrison asked quietly. Chun was quiet for a long moment, watching as children from a dozen different species played together in the memorial garden. Human kids laughed alongside young Altarians and Corvins. Former enemies' children have become friends. "Jake," she said finally, 6 months ago, the galaxy accepted that powerful species could murder children with impunity. Today, over 200 worlds have protection agreements that specifically prohibit targeting civilians. I think Emma would approve. Morrison nodded as he watched a human girl help a young Zephyrian boy who had fallen while playing. The boy's parents had been refugees from the Imperial collapse, seeking asylum on human worlds. Now their son was growing up in safety, protected by the same species his former government had tried to destroy. "You know what the strangest part is?" Morrison said. "We never actually conquered anything. We just showed everyone what was possible when good people refused to accept evil." June smiled as she watched the children playing. "Maybe that's the most human thing of all. We don't win by destroying our enemies. We win by turning them into friends." The galaxy had learned an important lesson from humanity's response to the New Haven massacre. Strength was not about the ability to destroy. True strength was about the ability to protect. The ability to show restraint when you had the power. To take revenge. The ability to build peace from the ashes of conflict. Humanity had kept their promise. The Zephyrian Empire was gone, but in its place was something better. A galaxy where children of all species could grow up safely, protected by beings who understood that the future belonged to the young. The children of New Haven were gone, but their legacy would live on in every child who would never have to fear being targeted because of their species. That was the kind of victory that meant something.